Ramadan Kareem. In the NESA world, we find a long list of significant issues. Insurgency, terrorism, nuclear proliferation, sectarian strife, political conflict, the youth bulge, illiteracy, and failing economies are just some of the issues. For the long term, however, there is one problem more ominous, in fact, than all of the above: the Hindu Kush-Himalaya Water Crisis that threatens nearly half the world's population if not resolved. This greater Himalaya region incorporates a huge area from Central Asia to China, Afghanistan to Myanmar. Meltwater from the snows and over 50,000 glaciers in the region feed the headwaters of 10 major river systems. These river systems, in turn, either directly or indirectly support the livelihoods of some 3 billion people. Serious ecological damage has already been done in the region. It is not hard to foresee as many as 1 billion people without the water they need to live, the water they must have for their farms to produce the food they need, and the water that is essential for factories and services to operate. This is how dire the outlook is. Ecological destruction is happening every day, and it may not be reversible. Now, national security is not simply a matter of armies and armaments. The bedrock of national security is economic security. And this is seriously threatened for all the countries of the watershed unless decisive, collective, regional action is taken soon and then sustained for decades to come. What, therefore, is actually happening, and what can be done to avoid a catastrophic crisis? I hope through this dialogue to introduce this topic, urging that this crisis be given the attention that it merits in the weeks, months, and years ahead. Let me first talk about the ecological crisis, what it is, and how it is unfolding, in fact, right before our eyes. The giant scale of the region belies the delicate balance of its ecosystem. Temperature variations of only a few degrees can have dramatic effects. Climate change and air pollution are already causing this region's glaciers to melt at a rapid pace. Many will disappear entirely by 2035. Snow and rain patterns across the region have been disrupted. Countries are receiving too much or too little rain and precipitation, either too soon or too late. Droughts are more severe, and monsoons are causing massive floods that destroy large swaths of villages and farmland. Erosion is progressing rapidly in this mountainous area. Landslides are becoming more common, endangering mountainside homes and fields. The topsoil that farmers depend upon to produce their crops is being washed away. Rates of malaria and waterborne diseases are increasing across the region as their reach multiplies and expands due to warmer temperatures. Surface water availability is varying more greatly throughout the region, creating serious water imbalances between countries. In places where surface waters are receding, aquifers are being drained. In India, for instance, 10% of the agricultural harvest depends on unsustainable groundwater use. In all of these countries, both surface and underground water reserves are becoming more polluted. All of these ecological crises are already ongoing. If current trends continue, they threaten to expand and cause even greater damage throughout the Himalayan watershed. Consequences are many. The political and diplomatic environment in the greater Himalayan region is as volatile and fragile as is its physical one. China, India, and Pakistan consume ever greater quantities of water to support their rapid industrial and population, and they compete with each other in a zero-sum game for dwindling natural resources. Large portions of the population of this region depend on agriculture as their main source of income. In Pakistan, for instance, 70% of the population is involved in farming. There, variations in weather patterns, glacial melt, and overuse have led to a 50% decrease in renewable water. Some of the more extreme predictions claim that all water-based economic activity in Pakistan will be halted by 2015. As crop yields decrease, so do rural incomes. Already, mass migrations from the countryside to the cities in Nepal and Bangladesh are contributing to the growth of slums where violence, corruption, and disease are rampant. The displacement of rural populations across the entire region is so pervasive that accounts for 15% of total world migrations. High levels of urban poverty and unemployment, coupled with water shortages, are a recipe for popular unrest. Already, communities in northern India have staged protests to the water shortages there. Agriculture is not the only sector of the economy threatened by changes in the hydrological systems there. Nearly all the countries in the region utilize river systems for hydroelectric power. In order to increase its energy output, for example, India has plans to build a series of dams along rivers that it shares with Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. In each case, the natural water flow will be disrupted, which will have severe consequences for downstream agriculture that depends on regular flood cycles. In Central Asia, hydroelectric dams are already causing tensions between neighboring countries. Dams on the Amu Darya in Tajikistan and on the Narin, which becomes the Sir Darya in Kyrgyzstan, threaten the agricultural economies of Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. Uzbekistan has, on multiple occasions, refused shipments of natural gas to Kyrgyzstan as a result of the disruption of water flow. China's plan to build a dam on the Tsangpo-Brahmaputra River would produce a massive amount of energy. Yet it would also divert water from the source of 30% of India's and 50% of Bangladesh's total water resources. Indian leaders have already made it clear that such a dam would be considered an act of war. Let's look at the options. But let's be clear. The situation is dire. Climate change is threatening the region with poverty, disease, unrest, and even war. Dramatic action must be taken to manage this crisis. If the region continues to follow its current course of every man for himself water politics, there will be no escaping a regional and global catastrophe. Now, a Himalayan Watershed Cooperation Council, HWCC, that regulates how much water is used, and not just how much, would be a good first step. The region needs to ensure that all of its countries not only get enough water, but that the water is clean and healthy for use downstream. Obviously, such an agreement will be difficult to forge. It would require regional members to abandon national water strategies in place for over 50 years. Neighboring countries would have to set aside age-old disputes and rivalries. And yet, perhaps because water is such an essential and basic resource, the crisis could be the impetus the region needs to overcome these issues. The region can look to Europe, for example, where once rival countries along the Rhine have partnered to ensure that each receives an equitable share of clean water. Managing water use, however, will only help mitigate the effects of the problem. For a longer-term solution, countries will need to find a way to reduce their own carbon footprints. The region is home to some of the world's fastest-growing economies. The industrial achievements of these countries have been astounding. Yet the effects of that rapid growth are limiting long-term prospects. Smog and soot from the increasing number of factories and automobiles in these countries are raising temperatures throughout the region. Those emissions need to be curtailed. Clean development initiatives throughout the region have helped, but the fact remains that the region continues to emit more and more carbon dioxide. Much like the HWCC, a Himalayan Carbon Regulation Council, HCRC, could be formed to develop a system for regional emissions reduction. Rather than creating a competition between countries for the lowest emissions, the system could promote a cooperative approach toward reaching a region-wide goal. It could incentivize intra-regional investment in locally developed clean technologies, building stronger economic ties and creating jobs. It could promote the spread of sustainable agricultural practices that conserve water and promote soil integrity. This would not only reduce the environmental impact of farming, but also promote rural prosperity. It could lay out a framework for alternative energy solutions that take into account the concerns and equities of all regional members. Now, there are no easy answers to the challenges posed by climate change. In the end, the consequences of environmental damage are inescapable. Managing these consequences and containing the damage will require leaders to make difficult decisions. They will have to balance short-term economic growth with long-term growth and stability. They will have to rethink certain basic assumptions about national security. Yet in making these difficult choices, leaders have the opportunity to bring about a sea change in regional relations. They can replace conflict with cooperation, environmental degradation with development, and poverty with prosperity. The establishment of organizations like the HWCC and the HCRC would send a clear signal to all that the region recognizes this as a vital issue of regional security. By drawing on international support and relying on the approval of the member states, these organizations could find solutions to the growing ecological crisis in the region. As NESA alumni, we can help leaders make those choices through dialogue and discussion. I encourage you all to share your insights on this topic with each other. Thank you for your time. I hope you have found this installment of the Ramadan Dialogues interesting and informative. As always, I encourage your comments and feedback. I look forward to hearing from you.
For further information or to comment or pose a question, please email NESA Communications at ndu.edu. Learn more about NESA on our website at nesacenter.org, on YouTube at the NESA Center channel, on Twitter at the NESA Center, or on Facebook, facebook.com/NESA Center.